Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hi, this is Linda Thompson, your host for The Author Show. No matter who you are or what you do, you are a salesperson in some form. We all negotiate, communicate, and try to influence people every day, no matter if you are selling a car or lunching with a friend. It's all about developing a relationship, and a positive relationship will overcome the negative thoughts about salespeople almost every time. Our guest is Richard F. Libin, the president of APB and author of Who Knew? It's About You, because everyone is a salesperson. Richard joins us today to talk about Who Knew? Richard, welcome to the Author Show.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you having me.
Richard, will you give us a quick overview of Who Knew? It's all about you, because everyone is a salesperson?
Certainly. When I started to write this book, the first thing I thought about is how can I make a difference? And I think that people start to forget in our days of electronics that you can tweet, you can Facebook, you can do everything electronically, but I think people forget that sales is still face-to-face, toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose, and belly-to-belly. And I just want people to realize that that art has not gone away. As a matter of fact, that's a missing art that we have in our industry. People forget that they're salespeople, and everybody's a salesperson.
Did you write Who Knew for any particular type of reader?
I wrote it for everyone. I wrote it for the mother who has to negotiate with their children. I wrote it for the salesperson who negotiates with their customer. I wrote it for the CEO or CFO that has to negotiate with his people. It's all about getting people to do things that they need to do, but sometimes they don't know how to do. So how do you convince people to do that?
In my intro, I mentioned that you were president of APB. Will you tell us a little bit about your company?
Automotive Profit Builders is a company that started by my father in 1968. 49 years ago, he started by accident. And the one thing that he realized that in the automobile industry, there were very few people that trained salespeople to work and take advantage of every opportunity that came into the dealership. The average customer or consumer that comes into a dealership would walk in, would ask to look at something, and the salesperson was too busy trying to qualify them as to whether they can afford to buy, whether they are a buyer, or whether they'll buy it now today. And the number one thing that he realized back in 1968 was that everybody and every person coming in a dealership is an opportunity. And what we started to do back then was to count the actual traffic and determine what our true opportunity was, and not worry about spending more money trying to drive more customers in, but just simply working the customers that we had.
Okay, you came from the automotive industry, and we've all heard jokes about those used car salesmen. Humor aside, I've met some wonderful salespeople, and I've met some downright terrible ones. What makes a good salesperson?
Somebody who cares. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to sell you something. You're in the market to buy something, and my job is to help you buy it. And I think what salespeople forget is that they forget that their job is simply to help or guide the customer through the process so that they don't get hurt, they buy something they want. It's like price. Everybody wants to negotiate price. Well, if you have 3 large dogs and you're trying to buy a 2-seat automobile, your dogs aren't going to fit in the automobile. I can give you the best price. But it's not about price. It's about, does it fit your wants, needs, and desires? And if it does, we've got a match.
That takes me back to the old cliche, I want to buy, but I don't want to be sold. Does that follow the premise of what you're saying?
Absolutely. People don't want to be sold. I think there's a word in our industry or in the automobile industry, and the word is the word now, and everybody is trying to do business now. And one of the key things that we teach, it's not about doing business now. It's doing business when the customer's ready to do business, not when you're ready to do business. The salespeople are telling customers like, well, if you do it now and don't come back next week, you'd be better off because the incentives are bigger today. And the customers don't want to hear any of that. The customers will buy when they're ready to buy, and the salespeople will sell when the customer's ready to buy. And to start off at the front door to qualify somebody to determine whether they can buy or want to buy or is able to buy, that's not the right way of sales. It's kind of like I compare to somebody who buys a suit or a dress. They don't put the $5 suits or dresses on the $5 rack. They mix them all up. You walk over, you look at what you want, you pick it up, you look at it. If you like it, then you look at the price tag. Most people in the sales business or in the automobile sales business think that the first thing I want to do is to sell the price, then I'll sell the product. We sell the product first and the price second.
Describe your writing style. Have you written a book that's the 10 tips on how to, or are you telling stories about your personal experiences, or how does your book read?
This book actually reads more about people that are inspiring and people that have made a difference and people that were told no and found a way to say yes, like Walt Disney and Steve Jobs and Fred Smith and Lee Iacocca and Henry Ford. My favorite is Ken Blanchett. But those people were all told no, and they found a way to get it done because they were persistent in what they were doing. They had the drive, the passion, the commitment. And in this particular book, I wrote about stories that people could relate to. They're not stories that go on and on and on. They're stories that have a meaningful meaning. It's not like, let's find a problem, let's find a solution, and here's how you should handle it. And sometimes it's not what people do, or it's not what they say, but it's kind of like how they say it.
What would you say is the single most important message in your book that it relays to the readers?
Well, Who Knew is really about you can make a difference. You can make a difference in every single thing that you do. And, it comes down to attitude. It comes down to having a direction. It comes down to having that drive. It comes down to having the know-how to move yourself forward. And I think what happens is that some people get caught on the wheel, and they spin on that wheel and spin on the wheel, and they forget what they're on the wheel for. And our purpose, to begin with, whether you're negotiating with your children or you're negotiating in a business transaction, I look at 5-year-olds, and they've got the best sales skills in the world. They ask one question. They keep asking you why. And then they say, why? And then you say, because I told you so. And then they say, well, why not? And you look at them and you go, how does a 5-year-old get a 50-year-old all torqued out? And you know what? It's not a good enough answer, I told you so. The answer has got to be explained to them or them to what they can do or how they should do or why they should or shouldn't do it, not just I told you so. And I think that's what I'm really trying to say. Everybody's in control. If you don't like the cleaners, you go to different cleaners. If you don't like your phone company, you go to a different phone company. And today, consumers are in the driver's seat, where 20, 30 years ago, they weren't in the driver's seat. You had one phone company. If you didn't like the phone company, you still had one phone company. You didn't throw your phone out because you only had one company to deal with. Now, if you want a cell phone, you've got how many different cell phone companies that you can go to. So the competition has gotten better. The competition is out there. People are fighting for your business. And that's why when you look at all these ads, they're all talking about, well, our service is better and it's cheaper. They always got to throw in cheaper. Well, it's not about the cheapness. I want a service that's going to work 100% of the time, and I'll pay for that.
Boy, amen to that. So is Who Knew similar to anything else we may have read?
It goes back to the original book that I wrote a few years back, Who Stopped the Sale? And Who Stopped the Sale was really, it almost sounds like a mystery, but the only mystery is that the only one that stops the sale is us. Customers don't stop the sale. We stop the sale. We find a reason why the customer can't buy. We find a reason why they won't buy. We find an excuse why they can't do it. We stop the sale.
What makes Who Knew stand out in a crowd of books on the shelf?
I think it stands out because it's kind of a cross between a business book, a self-help book, a book that's not boring. I think that when you put it down, you kind of look at it and say, you know what, I knew all those things, and somewhere along the line I stopped doing them. So why did I stop? Here it is right here. I have a friend of my wife's who owns a clothing store, and she has my first book on her shelf. And it's actually in the middle of her store, and it's on the shelf where everybody can see it. And she says after she has a couple bad days in a row, she picks the book up to see what she did wrong. And I chuckle and laugh, and she says, and then, of course, I go in and I read about 5 or 6 or 8 pages, and I go, yep, I stopped doing that, and I stopped doing this, and I stopped doing that, and guess what? She finds her answers.
You've written 2 books now. Will there be a book 3?
Probably. The only reason I wrote the first book is because they told me I couldn't do it. Well, that's why I wrote the second book.
All right. Will you share with us one of your most success stories?
One of my most success stories that I can think about, and I'll go back to I was in St. Louis, and I had a gentleman who said to me, I can't believe that this actually works. And I said to him, listen, just try it. What have you got to lose? And he said, okay, if this works, what I'll do is I will fly you and your wife out here and take you to dinner. It was a beautiful dinner. Trust me, it was a beautiful dinner. And the best part was that he paid for it and brought both of us out there.
Boy, a lot of those success stories I'm sure you would like to have, right?
Absolutely. I would have actually taken the cash first, but I had the dinner anyways.
So tell me, where can we learn more about you, about your work, and most of all, where can we purchase Who Knew? It's all about you because everyone is a salesperson.
You can purchase my book on who-knew.com. They can also be purchased on the internet and some of the major retailers.
And do you write a blog, or can we learn more about you on your website?
If you get to whoknew.com, you'll be looking at Who Stopped the Sale, and there's also a link there that will take you over to my APB website to tell you everything that we do on APB and what direction we work in, help automobile dealers become more successful and make more money and have more customer satisfaction.
Richard, I have really enjoyed talking with you today. Who knew that all of us, in one form or another, are selling something every day? For everyone in the business world today, you've written a book that shares a very important lesson. Thank you for taking time to chat with us, and when you release your next book, will you come back for another visit?
Absolutely. I thank you very much.
My father was a salesman who could sell anything to anyone because of his likable personality and his belief in what he was doing. He grew up on a dirt farm in central Kansas, had no training, and it succeeded only by his desire to make a better life for himself and his family. Many have made it, many have failed. Richard's book, Who Knew?, is a great guide to help one navigate those turbulent waters of the art of the sale. Grab a copy today and start reading, and accept that you too are a salesperson. Thank you for listening. This is Linda Thompson concluding another edition of The Author's Show. Please share this interview with your friends and family so that they too may have the opportunity to discover our guest and his work. And why not help spread the word on social media as well? Please join us again next time for another exciting author and another great book on The Author's Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.